One of the things that I learned when I started to hang around 7, 8, 9 figure owners was that they never use their own money to build their business. And I think in the Black community, we're taught like you gotta like if you're working hard, if you're not working hard, it's not working for you, or it's not gonna be worth anything.
Yep.
And that's just not true. It's just not true. Don't spend any money on any systems because you're just starting out. You don't need all these different things. I just cringe. I'm like, oh, that makes my skin crawl. You telling people from the beginning that they don't need it. You know how hard it is to go back and then unravel all of the chaos. Like implement a system on that chaos that you piecemeal together. When if you just had a system from the beginning, albeit simple or small, or maybe it was low tech, at least it was a system.
Welcome back to another episode of This is Built Different podcast. Today, we have someone who is going to tackle something none of us really like in business, and that is handling systems. We have a chief strategy officer. I would like to introduce everybody to Dr. Krystal Verneé. How are you feeling today?
Thank you for having me.
Sure, sure. So we were connected through a previous podcast guest, and that is the power of building a network and having a platform where we can share stories and insights around what it takes to really build a business. And that guest led me to Crystal. I was already following her movement on LinkedIn. Little did I know I was going to get a front row seat to how to build systems, possibly into my business. So I'm really happy to have you here. Thanks for taking time to hop on with us.
Absolutely, super excited. Can't wait to dive right in.
Oh, well, that's what we're going to do. So, before we talk about all of the strategy and everything, let's talk a bit about who you were before you became a strategy officer. So, some of the things that may not end up in your bio, people can't just read about in a quick blurb. Give us a bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've really been into entrepreneurship since I was 16 years old.
Okay.
So at the age of 16, I started an eBay store. I was selling vintage and designer handbags. I was really into fashion in high school, like a lot of us were, back in the day. And of course, you had to be 18 to set up an eBay account back then. And I didn't tell my mother, so I did that. And I like found suppliers on my own, all the things, set up my little storefront, took pictures of the bags. I made $16,000 my first month in business. This is
What?
back in like 2001. Yeah. And then my mother found out and she was like, yeah, no, you're going to go to college because I was a junior in high school. And I come from a family of teachers, so I was gonna go to college regardless of what I thought was gonna happen. Because I definitely was like, oh, I don't need to go to college. I mean, I know how
Right.
to make money. Like is that why you go to school? So yeah, that's what happened. I actually have an engineering background, so I have an engineering degree in operations research and industrial engineering. So I did in fact end up going to school, but I in the back of my mind, I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I did that, got my degree all the while I was kind of looking for my business idea. So when I first got out of college, I in fact did not pursue engineering. I did door-to-door sales
Mm,
on 100% commission for like 2 years because I figured, being in business, I need to know how to sell things. And I was really bad at selling. So I did that. I put myself through the gauntlet, as they say. Um, and then I did insurance and financial planning for a while. And then I ended up doing government contracting as my 9 to 5 eventually, because I'm in the DMV area in Maryland to be exact. And government contracting and work for the government is big around this area. So that's what I did. And then I went to, with one of my line sisters, I went to a pole dancing class. And that was like the beginning of all the things that you see me into now. So I loved it, loved the workout, loved the people, how it empowered women. And I decided right then that I was gonna own a pole dancing studio,
mm.
which I do currently now.
Okay.
So yeah, Divas and Dolls Fitness is in Temple Hills, Maryland. We turned 12 in April.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. And so that was kind of the beginning of me discovering my knack for building brands, along with some influence from my father, who was also an entrepreneur. He was a truck driver and a limousine driver in LA. So he drove around like the big stars. So like Whitney Houston, Bobby Brown, New Kids on the Block, like all the big names back then.
Mhm.
He would always bring me stuff from their concerts. When I went to when I went to visit in Cali. So I have like a whole bunch of things, jackets, shirts, all the things from concerts that like the stars gave him from the concert for being their driver. So entrepreneurship has been an influence in my life for a very long time. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
So listen, you got to tell us a little bit more about just doing door to door sales because it's scary for everybody, but most women don't sign up for that. So
Mhm.
what was the influence behind that? Was the commission just that big? And he was like, I gotta go for it.
No, we were just listen, okay, first of all, if I told you the company, I don't know if they still exist. Part of me wants to go back and look. But I just knew I couldn't sell. I was a kid in like elementary school. My mom would buy all the candy from the fundraiser
Mhm.
because I was deathly afraid of asking people to buy things from me. I was like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to do it. So she would buy my little quota for the fundraiser and that'd be it. And I knew that. And I was like, well, I know I have to sell things in business. So let me find a sales job.
Okay.
And then this particular job came with an opportunity of opening your own office. So you could be an owner, like with a brick and mortar space. And I was like, well, that's a business. So that was my thinking, my logic, my engineering brain kicked in. Do this job for like 2 years, own an office, it's yours. Right. So that kind of went into, my decision for going into door-to-door sales. So I sold office supplies. I sold Quill office supplies. I was actually the number one sales rep in the country for like 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row.
Okay.
Got recognized at one of our regional conferences, and then I switched to Verizon Business Phone Service. Maybe like a year and a half in, and I became the number one rep in the country as well for that. So even though my little, scared self trying to do sales, I was able to get some awards, while I was in that position. Also build a team and have an opportunity to like manage people at a very young age. I was like 22
Okay.
when this was happening. And so I feel like it definitely helped me build a lot of character, but it also gave me the systems that I need and still using my business today for sales.
So one, I'm very familiar with Quill because like I used to work for a company that bought a whole bunch of stuff from Quill. So I just remember seeing those boxes piled up. So you just talked about you just went right into one of my next questions. I was thinking, what are some of the things you learned? Because you had like it's not a very a lot of people have a 9 to 5 before they start their business, but you did sales, you worked in healthcare, childcare. So what are some of the other lessons you learned from your previous professional experience that you use in your business now?
So I tell everybody, like, definitely having a 9 to 5, there's no shame in it. And I think take the opportunity to learn everything that you can in the position that you're in. Um, because you're going to need those skills because when you become an entrepreneur, when you become a CEO, you are going to have multiple hats that you have to wear in the beginning.
Mhm.
It's unavoidable, right? So like when you work at a 9 to 5, you have one job. You might be a salesperson, a marketing person, you might be an HR, you might be some type of a data entry person. Like there's one job you have to do. It has a couple of duties, but it's still one job. When you become a CEO, you have like 8 to 10 jobs, literally, and they're all full time. So I tell people take advantage of all the things that you can. Like you have an opportunity to sit with other departments, learn a new skill, advance. Don't take it lightly, the opportunities that you receive when you're working a 9 to 5, because you're going to need some of those same skill sets when you're going to build your business. But I started out when I was in government contracting as an entry level case management person. Like I managed cases, worked in a large subsidy program for the military for childcare. And I started from the bottom, worked my way all the way up to the C suite. So I worked so by the time I left, I had 150 direct reports and I ran the government contracting program that we had. I worked every single job on my team, every single one before I had left, like at some point. And By the time I left, I had case management skills, I had data entry skills, customer service, help desk, call center manager. Um, I had contracting experience, I had technical writing experience, I had contract negotiation experience, financial experience, fiduciary experience. I had experience now writing my own contracts. I had experience with managing subcontractors. So I didn't take the opportunities that I received lightly. I embraced them, and I utilized them in my business. What do I have to do? I have to do HR in my business, right? I have a team, but like we don't have an HR department. I'm not like a big corporation, right? So like I had to know the basics of being a leader or manager and having to do some simple HR function. Of course, if it's like something that has some excuse me legalities behind it, I have to bring in a contractor. But the basic stuff, I have to know how to do that. I have contracts that I have to send out to clients, as well as my employees. I have negotiation skills that I use when I partner with other people. So I think all in all, it's just important to take advantage of opportunities and always take roles that prepare you for your next. So even if you feel like the roles is too big for you or maybe you're not ready, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. If you always stick in roles that make you comfortable, you're never going to grow.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And you talked about like wearing all the hats and doing so many things. And then now in your business, you help solve for like operational chaos and when things are getting messy for CEOs. But what did that look like for you? Like what did you ever was things a big mess for you or were you always kind of on top of things and that's why you made it your business?
It's a big mess for everybody. I mean, let's I'm not gonna sit up here and say that it wasn't a mess. It was a mess. I'm very transparent, a transparent person. It was terrible. Terrible, absolutely terrible. But we got it together. I can honestly say 100%. I didn't know what I was doing when I first started my business. Like I thought I did because I had that success early on in my teens. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be a cakewalk. I know what I'm doing. I'm professional. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean you don't know the first thing about running a business, right? So there's a lot to learn, and even now I'm continuing to learn from people who are like 10, 20 steps ahead of me, right? So can't underscore coaching and mentorship enough when you get into this space of really being able to grow your business. Um, but I understood from my engineering brain that I needed systems in place. I needed standard operating procedures. That's what I do. That's what my degree is in. So like logically that made sense to me. There needs to be a process. And as long as I follow the process, that works, I'm going to be successful. So like for example, and I saw this even in sales because sales was the thing that like that was the bane of my existence. There was a process that it was. I'm going to just keep it 100. There was a process that we had to follow. Literally there were steps and there were numbers, law of averages, like like the more doors you see, the more decision makers you see, the more accounts you'll close. Like that was literally what they told us. So we had these like mantras that we would repeat and we would teach those to our team members. But like since I'm a numbers person, I was the only person in the office that like had created like a whole spreadsheet and like actually did my set. Like we didn't have to do all that, but that was me. That was me. And I did that for my team. And I was like, no, guys, like the numbers actually work out. What they're saying about the 10%, like you're going to close at least 10% of your accounts if you see these many doors, it's true. I ran the numbers. And so from that point on, that became like the thing like, okay, I have to have my numbers readily accessible so that I know what decisions I'm going to make, right? So those types of habits were ingrained in me early on. So when I started my studio, I didn't know what I was doing. I knew that there were some numbers that I needed to like grab a hold of. Like what were the metrics that I needed in order to be able to make the right decisions as a CEO. And it took like finding some mentors and going to some conferences to figure it out to get the numbers. Once I got it, I was off to the races. So helping other business owners discover that or maybe even create them in some cases because they just maybe there are key KPIs, key performance indicators that don't exist in their industry yet, or maybe their business has a unique spin on it where they need to look at something different. Helping them to be able to suss that out and have that for decision making, I think is so crucial.
Now that you make better decisions through tracking the right KPIs, what are some of the decisions that you see in the CEOs make that's keeping things messy on there and possibly like stagnating their business and keeping them broke?
Yeah, I think just not spending money in the right places. So, especially if you're bootstrapping, you're 300K or below, or maybe even what I call like the death trap between 300 to 500 in revenue annually. There's like a death trap there. It's like you built something that works, but like you can't push it over that half mil hump because you don't have the right systems in place. You're hemorrhaging money and you maybe don't even have the right team in place. So I think you're so used to bootstrapping, you're like trying to cut costs, but really you're spending more money. So like for example, having disjointed systems. This system costs $10 a month. This system costs $20 a month. This system is like, I don't know, $30. You're like, oh, in your mind, this is all under $50 or under $100, so I'm saving money, but really you're spending more money because the systems don't talk to each other. You're doing more manual work, whether that's your time or you hired somebody else to maybe enter some data for you, or there's another process you had to add on. When if you just had to spend $200 and got rid of these five systems that you were using, you would save, I don't know, maybe like thousands of dollars in labor because you're not duplicating processes or having people like do double manual work. So I think normally it's either not having systems, so like you don't have anything. So then there's that. You're manually doing everything, and that's usually your time because you're like, I don't want to pay anybody to do it. So you're trying to, again, still bootstrap, or you just have too many systems that you think are saving you money that really aren't, when you need to really streamline what you have in order to be able to increase your revenue.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great because that's something that I learned with my juice bar and growing it, like getting into a couple of locations where you see a number first and then you judging the outcomes based on that, and you should be thinking about just what's the ultimate result you want, and then like how you can fast forward to that. So if it costs more money up front, if if it's quicker, ultimately it gets cheaper because you can use that time for something else, or it empowers somebody in a different way, and that they might be more enthusiastic about working in your business. So you got to think, and like you said, when you're used to bootstrapping, I didn't think about it this way till you just said it. When you're used to bootstrapping, it's not that business is hard, it's just that you've been one way for such a long time, you didn't realize that you got to make a change, like mentally or within the business, to do the next thing. So it's that's an interesting way to look at it. So I think thanks for sharing that. Now, I know that you work with a lot of female founders. So, is there anything that women are taught about uh, how to run a business, how to manage a business, even at a CEO level that might be working against them?
I think it's what we're not taught.
Okay.
That works is what works against us usually. I mean, I can say for myself, I mean, money wasn't necessarily talked about. Business definitely wasn't talked about. So my dad and my mom, my mom was a single mom. My dad lived across the country. Um, she talked that money was important, but like business wise, it was like, no, you need to get a job. You work that job for 30 years and then you retire, the end.
Great.
My dad, on the other hand, was like, you need to go to school, get a job, get experience, but then you're gonna want your own business. So he was on the other end of the spectrum. So I have two people with different mindsets telling me two different things. Wild. I ended up doing both, but I think there were some key things left out. Like for example, how to manage your spending. College, I got into a lot of credit card debt. Like
Mhm.
credit cards are not for fun. um, but how to use them strategically in order to be able to build wealth, to fund your business. I think one of the things that I learned when I started to hang around 7, 8, 9 figure owners was that they never use their own money to build their business. And I think, especially in the Black community, we're taught like you gotta, like, if you're working hard, if you're not working hard, it's not working for you, or it's not gonna be worth anything.
Yep.
And that's just not true. It's just not true. Like I think, like when I was an insurance agent, I learned that the majority of America's wealth was built on the back of insurance policies. That's how generational wealth was built. Families were, so basically our white counterparts were using insurance to give to their children as a means of passing down wealth, right? Because there was very few millionaires back in the day, but how did so many families excuse me, get to be well off? They were using insurance policies to build the wealth over generations, over time. That's how they were building names for themselves if they didn't start a business or an empire back in those days. And we weren't using insurance in that way. Similarly, we're not using loans and grants and credit cards in the same way that our counterparts are. And women, we aren't doing that like in relation to men. So the statistics are that even now today, um, the average revenue for a male business in the first year is like, I think first 1 2 years is 80 grand, but for a woman it's 30 grand. So like there's still a earning gap when it comes to men and women, in terms of being able to earn revenue at a higher rate in their business. So I don't think we're properly taught how to create revenue engines for ourselves when it comes to running our business or getting our business started. Like a lot of my male counterparts, when I talk to them, they're like, "Oh yeah, I went to go seek capital. I went to go get a loan. What did I do? I used my tax return. I use my savings, and I also use some savings that I have from my full-time job. So like I completely bootstrapped all of my businesses. If I could do it over, I would do it completely differently.
Yeah.
Um, and how I would not use my own money. You save your own money, and you use others people's money essentially, to build your business.
That so a few things that was amazing, Crystal, because it speaks directly to me. I'm sure speaking to somebody in the audience. Two things. Not only did our counterparts grow off insurance, we were insured against. Like it predates like people having jobs. Like when we were property, we were insured against. So those families had money based on us. And then there's the big knowledge gap because we don't even realize that we are valuable enough to get insurance. It's deep. It's deep. But you just made me think about that. Now, when it comes, I didn't know that about the stat about men and women entrepreneurs. So I know they talk about pay inequity, which actually exists. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's actually more of a level playing field because everybody can start. You can choose where you start or where you have access here and there. Everybody has their struggles, but it's more of a level playing field because it's more meritocracy based, right? You can earn, you can grow, you just do what it takes to grow a business, unless you don't know, like you said, about funding and about capital. So I know that, like you said, women may not know much about like fun or don't get understanding or knowledge around funding, but I think that our community as a whole don't get any knowledge around funding. But is there anything that prevents women from thinking in terms of like say that the 30 grand is a certain place? What I'm trying to say is 30 and 80 is that's a big difference. $50,000 is a big difference for a small business. Are they not thinking about how to make the 80,000? Are they not using the same resources? Because for men, I guess it would be even more competitive. And then from the outside looking in, there are a lot of programs for women and things like that. So what else is it that's preventing women from making more money other than getting additional capital for their business?
I think it's still societal conditioning. I think
Okay.
we still grow up in the princess world. Get married, have 2 kids, a dog, and a white picket fence. Like that literally is still being taught to little girls, no matter what race you are. I think now I'm seeing a shift. Like I'm definitely seeing a shift now with like young children and like what types of messages they're being fed. But like I think for people who are like my age, yeah, like that, what you're supposed to be doing and how money plays a role in your life has a negative connotation with it. And for women who want to start businesses, we're not supposed to do that still. Like it's not okay still for women to have a business, be a CEO. That's a man's thing,
Mhm.
right? That's very masculine. I mean, it really is. Even to be a CEO, to be a leader, is living in your masculine energy, which is why it's important for women to have balance and do things that the balance that divine feminine. That's why I also dance. That is feminine, right? Because I have to be in a leadership position all day, make decisions all day, right? So and that goes into another conversation. But I just think that like how we're taught about money, what we're taught is proper for a woman to do is still kind of dated. And that's why, like, women are like, oh, when they start a business, this is my little side hustle. Like, yes, men say that, but I think men go into it thinking like this is gonna be my main income. Or some like this is my little side money. So I think even having that mindset prevents you from earning more because you're not as serious about it.
All right now.
You're not running as fast as you possibly could to to be able to earn at a higher capacity, to learn faster, to be able to increase your earning capacity. So I think that also plays a role. And then mentorship and seeing it's so important to see examples of where you want to be. If you don't see an example, sometimes it's hard to visualize what's possible. I'm not saying it's not, because we have people who do novel things all the time, but it's a lot easier to accept that this is possible for me when you see someone doing it. So, like, for example, for a long time, I wasn't sure that being a successful studio owner was possible, especially as a Black woman. And then I met another Black woman and I went to her space and I said, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. This
Mm-hmm.
is possible. And from there, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was like, I had people telling me that I had an expensive hobby, my ex-husband included. Expensive hobby, nothing. This is just a fad. You're not going to make anything. And, this person's lying to you. So what did I do? I booked a ticket and I went to go visit her. She's in Atlanta. I said, okay. I said, well, let's see. Right. Because I met her and, in passing at a conference. We're still good friends to this day. She's like my big sister. Like,
That's what's up.
so, I went to her space and I was like, well, she's not lying because I'm in the building. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking around. I'm like, this is amazing. So from that point, you couldn't tell me that this wasn't possible. Likewise, when you're like, I want to, be a millionaire or a billionaire, it's kind of like, okay, but who else is doing it? How do I get there? Who can I go to? It's hard to do that when you don't have examples. So when you're starting your business and you're the only one that has that mindset, it's going to be hard for you to kind of get past that revenue um, plateau or like milestone. If everybody around you is telling you why you doing that, why you want this business, just work your job, girl, and go home. If that's all you're hearing, it's very hard to kind of overcome that unless you put yourself specifically in places and spaces where everybody's thinking like y'all running all in the same direction. People are mentioning your name in rooms that you're not even in. That makes it a lot easier. So one of the
Yeah.
things I actually advise my clients and anybody who, asks about entrepreneurship is like, are you in a group of entrepreneurs? I was like, you need some new friends. Period.
There you
Full
go.
stop.
There you go.
Like
Listen.
you need some new friends.
I hear it all the time, and it's so true, man. Environment is like the number one indicator for success. So you got to be around the vibes. If you can't get to the people, have conversations like what you and I are doing right now. Find people online, go visit them. That's an investment into how big and much better your future can be. Like, and I was trying to keep the smile down when you mentioned like actually seeing it, because I always tell people this. I call it the Meek Mill effect. Like Meek Mill used to rap, and he still does. He rap about riding his Rolls Royce through the hood and Philly. People like, yo, first of all, get out of Philly. It's dangerous there, and it is. But them kids in the hood need to see that, because they not going to believe it. It's only on a stream. It's only on an audio stream, and they hear about it or they see a music video. But they need Meek to come through. Like, we need to see Meek in the Rolls Royce, because now for one, the car is real. The person driving the car is somebody that look like you. He not doing anything illegal, or she not doing anything illegal. You got to be able to see it, and because you can have an internal vision, right? That's what vision is, right? You see it for the time being, but it's hard to hold on to that when the environment says that's not what reality is. And what people fail to realize is that, like, you actually build out your reality, so it comes from inside. So I'm really glad you shared that. It got me all hype and excited. My bad. I'm gonna bring it back down. Bring it back down. Get back into the interview. Um, but I really like that you talk about systems are very unsexy, but I like that you talk about it. And most coaches and uh, C-suite executives, they talk about like the transformation, right? They're gonna bring a transformation to a business or to their clients, but you just drop on them like a whole system. You deliver a system. So, what have you been finding that why are people so resistant to systems?
I think it's just number one is the word. I think the word system gives people anxiety. Whereas I love it. I know
Hmm.
that for 99.9% of people, it gives them anxiety because that usually is indicative of change, and change is hard for people. People don't like change. But the one thing that I've learned in my life outside of entrepreneurship, even, is that the one thing that's constant is change. Things are going to change. And so if you want to be a CEO, whether it's your company or someone else's company, you're going to have to learn to ride the winds of change. Number one. Number two, um, in order to stay relevant in your marketplace, you're going to have to change. So that often means you're going to need a new system, a new way of doing things, and keeping your finger on the pulse is going to be extremely important. But I do think the word system, and then feeling like, oh gosh, that means I'm going to have to change something in order for this to work. When you might have to change something, but it doesn't mean you have to change the whole thing that you're doing, right? So, like, for example, one of the things that I work with people on is automation, and now, of course, AI. But you have a process, and I take a look at your entire process, right? And maybe it involves, like, 6 emails, 3 phone calls. I'm just making this up now. And then you have to build some widget, and mail it out, and then do all these things. And people are doing all these things manually. My God, today. Like, that is, you don't have to do that. If you have a system, right? And system can be tech or process, right? Or both, right? That's a system.
Like that, yeah.
So if you if you had some type of technology that sent the emails for you, that did the phone calls, that ordered the widgets, so long as the human had to do was build the widget, but maybe you have a machine that builds the widget. So really it's a human pressing a button or monitoring the building of said widget and maybe taking it to the post office, right? So like you've taken labor out of those places that maybe you can now repurpose that person to do something that is a higher value task to your business. You save time, you can now produce and sell and send more widgets, right? But it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, it's scary because that's a change. And I think ultimately that really is what, like, I think it's like, I can't remember the stat, but I think it's over 90% of people get anxiety or they're resistant to change. It's only like the top 10, I can't remember the stat exactly, but it's very small, of people who actually embrace change and that are able to basically ride the wind of change that, become like your highest leaders in life because they understand that things are just going to change and that's just it. That's just the way of the world. But yeah, I think that's mainly it. It's like people get anxiety, especially when I work. They're like, no, we don't want to change anything. People are going to think that we're taking their jobs. I'm like, well, no, like, wouldn't you rather this person, you told me that you were, having these issues in the other department. You got all this work over here is not being done. What if these same people could do the work that wasn't being done over here and this was all automated? Wouldn't that be great? Right? And at first it's like, no, but ultimately, yes. Yes, it is. It's like, yeah, of course it would be. So I think that's like those are like the main reasons why I see people like get resistant to systems.
So I want people to be able to identify themselves in this, and that was a great breakdown, right? You talk about some of the tasks they had to do, the emails, the building of the widgets. When you go through somebody's process, do you have like a framework for that, or is it a way that you kind of break down what they have so you can easily diagnose what kind of systems they need to put in place?
Yeah, so I do have an Ascend framework.
Hmm.
And I, go through that with the client. But first and foremost, what we do is we do an audit of everything. And the reason why we do an audit is because it's hard to be able to fully diagnose a problem when you only are able to see pieces
Yeah.
of that problem. And so an audit is particularly helpful so that I can look at a process from beginning to end, in order to be able to say, okay, here's where we have here's where we have the bottleneck or the breakdown, or maybe everything's fine. So real quickly, ascend stands for assess. That is the A in ascend. The C is clarity. E is efficiency. Um, N is non-negotiable, and then the D is decision making. So we kind of go through their process or processes, and take a look at each of the things, um, within the framework, and kind of give them a roadmap to follow. So usually the roadmap is about, 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 months, depending on how many processes that we look at in order to be able to fix everything. But assess falls under whatever you have in place, like your systems, your SOPs, even your team. And if you have any stats at each part of the process that we can look at, because a lot of people, they might have systems in place, but they're not looking at the data behind it.
Yeah, yeah. People,
So if you yeah, if you're not looking at the data, you can't make any decisions.
yes, we definitely underestimate that, especially when you're a busy founder, where you kind of don't have time to look over it unless you were an engineer or something like that, where it's natural for you. You don't think to go back. Like the numbers tell a story. It doesn't tell the whole story, but it's going to point you in the right direction. So that's something that I learned that was big. Uh, I want to share an example because I feel like you're speaking to me, and I think we all need to learn from this. When I had my juice bar, right, I was selling juice was 40% of the sales for the first location. People just love the cold press juice. And when I got the second location, it was less than 10%. It was single digit percentage because everybody just wanted smoothie bowls. And I was looking and I'm like, well, we making money. I should probably be making more. Where the margins at? And I'm making juice like every week. It take a lot of labor to make a cold press juice. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making these juices, but them joints ain't moving, and I ain't paying attention. And then I go and I look at the sales, and then I did the percentages, and I was like, oh no, we're gonna spend all the money over here. We ain't even gotta worry about that. And it worked out, but it wasn't natural. But that's the story of the data, and that's just I'm just vouching for what Krystal said here, guys. So I do believe that's really really helpful. So now what I want to talk about now is something that I think we can only get this from somebody like you, something that may be counterintuitive to what everybody's seeing on the internet about systems, but something that you know about it that you feel like people are getting fed the wrong info when it comes to building or learning or adjusting to systems within a business.
I think the thing that I hate to see the most is that people don't you don't need it when you first start.
How about that? Yeah, yeah.
And I think I just cringe. I'm like, oh, that makes my skin crawl. You telling people from the beginning that they don't need it. Do you know how hard it is to build something, piece something together, um, almost like what is the name of that cartoon where like it's the man is like all different pieces and like it's like he got like a wooden hand, and he got like a a
I know what you're
GI Joe
talking about.
action figure hand. Like it's like you piece you
You like a
piece
Mr.
it
Potato Head
together.
almost.
Yeah, like it's okay. Yeah, we'll just use Mr. Potato Head because I can't think of the cartoon right now. Mr. Potato Head, but like imagine Mr. Potato Head, none of his extremities matched. Like
Mhm.
that's kind of what it's like. You know how hard it is to go back and then like unravel all the chaos, like implement a system on that chaos that you piecemeal together. When if you just had a system from the beginning, albeit simple or small, or maybe it was low tech, at least it was a system. And now that you added some tech on it, you just supercharged it. You added a rocket to it, right? Like you put some nitro in the tank and it took off. Like, but no systems in the beginning, just because you're just starting, I think that's like that is the one that really gets me. Like just do some stuff and make some stuff work, and then you can figure it out later. Don't spend any money on any systems, um, because you're just starting out. You don't need all these different things. Now, granted, you might not be ready for like the most robust, let's say, customer relationship management system is one system that I think that everybody should spend money on day one. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you ready to run a business. You need that. Like, how are you managing your interactions, your engagements? You're going to start losing money from day one if you don't have a way to track. You're going to use Excel. Okay, that works for like 10 people. But once you start having 20, 30, 40, 50 people, like, I feel like at that point you already are losing like Do the like opportunity cost. Like, what is it costing you not being able to follow up because you don't get alerts or you don't see where somebody is in your sales pipeline? So you want to use this Excel sheet because it's free, but this Excel sheet just didn't cost you a $5,000 sale because you didn't follow up with them on time and they went with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, that's the decisions that you got to weigh. Um, but I do think that that's definitely one of the things that makes me cringe. I'm like, no, they don't need the most expensive system, but they still need a system and they need to get used to having systems in their business. Like, just because you're new doesn't mean that it gets to be cheap or free. I tell people, because people do this also with pricing too. They're like, oh, I'm new. So what's this person charge? 1,000? Okay, I'm gonna charge 500. Why? Like, is it supposed to cost 1,000? Do you see top brands doing, like, if Louis Vuitton comes out with a purse and the purse is $5,000, they're not gonna sell it to you for $50 because it's new.
Hmm.
Like, same thing with milk. Like, you can go in the store and buy milk. Oh, this is new milk. I think I should pay like 10 cents for this new milk. No, like, so I just that really kind of gets to my nerves, like, just because it's like you're new to business, you don't need to have all these different things. And if you did that from day one, you would be so much further along, like documenting what you do. You have a simple process when you first start in, contact your prospects, send them emails, document that. That's a system,
Hmm.
right? Because when it's time to hand it off to someone because you no longer have the time to do those lead generation activities, it's already documented. That's a system. I think, just building those good habits from the beginning is what's going to really help you out in the long run.
Yeah, I think that the good you hit it right on the head. The good habits, because you could tell me if you notice this too. One of the benefits of having a system, even though people don't, like you said, people are resistant to change, which means they actually want systems because systems reduce the amount of change. It raises the amount of confidence people have either working for you in your business and the people who work with you, like your clients or your customers, because they know that the process is smooth, it's well thought out, and it's going to get really good results on the other end. So I think that that's really good. Now, before we wrap up, though, for anybody that's listening, that's keeping it real with themselves, and they know that they still in chaos, and they're not really sure where to start with their systems or how that even looks for them. What's something that you could tell them that they could walk away with from this conversation and be like, all right, I feel better now about systems because Krystal told me to do this.
Whatever one I think is, don't feel bad, don't lose hope. Everybody goes through this revelation, if you will. They have a come to Jesus moment. Okay, I need to do something differently. I think it's now what are you going to do with this information? So if anything that I've said or Quintel said like resonates with you, I think the first thing you need to do, what I would encourage you to do, is just write down, literally write down or type, whatever, write or type, whatever floats your boat. Um, all of the things that you do in your business, all the activities, all the tasks that need to be done, and take a look at that, and then be like, okay, this is where if it would be great if I had a system that did this, even if you don't know like where to go, what to do. There's somebody that can help you with that, but at least if you have that documented for yourself, that's the first step in being able to take control over your business and start to make smart decisions. Because honestly, when I work with clients, that's the first thing that we do. I'm like, all right, I don't need you to tell me what you feel like is what you're doing. I need the facts. I need you to write it all down. We need to document the whole thing. So I sit with them, either myself or a team, and we document everything. And I go through and I have to analyze it and see, okay, like, okay, this could be solved with technology. This could be solved with technology. So having that inventory for yourself also keeps you honest, because it also can show you like what are all the little things that you're doing that you're like, it's like 5 minutes for me to do it, but you keep doing those 5 minute tasks that's eating up your time, and that's why you feel like you're not getting anything done.
Mm.
So I feel like it's also like an honesty, like a honesty slap in the face a little bit of like, dang, like if I had a person or a system that did this, this would give me like 10 to 15 hours back in my week. So I would say that's the first thing that you do. If you don't know where to start, the first start is like just documenting what you currently have.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's something people are resistant to as well. They don't want to write down things or document it. But I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now tell us everything that you have going on, where people can get in contact with you, where you would like them to go to hit you up.
Yeah, so you guys can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at Krystal Verneé, also on Instagram at I_simply_she, and Facebook at I Simply She. You can visit my website at www.isimplyShe.com.
Okay, great, great. Oh, Crystal, you do a lot of speaking. Is there anything you want to share about that? Do you have anything coming up or something like that?
Yeah, okay. So let's see. My next speaking gig, I'm doing the Second Act Business Summit, which is actually next week, the 27th.
Okay.
That is going to be virtual. And then I'm going to be at the Mom 2.0 conference in April. That's April the 16th through the 18th. That's going to be in Austin. Tickets for that are on sale now. All you do is Google Mom 2.0 and
Hmm.
it'll pop up. I'm doing a workshop there on marketing like a CMO using AI to grow your business. And then that's all I can recall right now. But I'm gonna actually be hosting a couple of different summits and things here later in the year. So definitely look out for that. Stay tuned to my pages and you will see those announcements going up.
Okay, great, great. Well, that was a great episode. You shared a lot. I hope some people take this episode and go and build and implement some systems. And if you can't, just hit Crystal up. She got you. She'll take care of it. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.